Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Meet the Candidate, sponsored by WWDBTV and our Nevada judges. Now, today, I've got one of those people that's running for judge way out in Henderson. And I have here Mr. Lance Hendron.
Yes,
right?
John. Thank you so much, sir.
You have a Hendron Law firm, right?
Correct. Hendron Law Group.
Okay. And how long have you had that?
It's going on 18 years now. It goes by really quick.
Wow, yeah. And so you're running for the Henderson Justice Court in Department 3.
That's correct.
Okay. How many departments do they have in Henderson?
They currently have 3, but starting in 2027, there'll be an additional one, so there'll be a total of 4 Henderson Justice Courts.
I think that's great, because from everything I've seen and heard, the workload for judges is just horrendous.
Yes.
And it's, to me, that's self-defeating, because how can you expect someone to do a good job if they're buried all the time? You know, if they're trying to rush through it. And anyway,
No, absolutely.
That's another story.
No, you're absolutely right, because it gives the ability for people, people that have to go into the court system, some finality, some closure. Having access to justice is extremely important.
Yeah. So you've been here in Southern Nevada for what, 35 years?
They're over 35 years now. Again,
Right.
that also goes by really quick too. Came out here with my parents when I was 8 and had some humble beginnings. Lived over in a small apartment. My parents had just gotten some job opportunities at the Mirage Hotel, which coincidentally is no longer.
Yeah.
But it gave us a starting ground, and I've been very grateful for the opportunities I've had in life.
Yeah.
Take that in true pride, really.
So you pretty much grew up here.
Yes.
Well, I lived here when I was a kid.
Okay.
Moved away, but I went to Fifth Street School.
Okay.
So that's how long ago that was. That was late
goes
50s,
back a
early
little
60s,
bit.
yeah. And I've always loved it here. I've always come back. I had been in construction most of my life and kind of was a gypsy. But I moved back here in 2000, and I just love it. I love the desert at night. There's great people here. I mean,
Absolutely.
we have an awesome community. And not to get sidetracked, but I'm going to get sidetracked. We have a show here called The Gift of Giving. Every week we have the head of a local private nonprofit group, and then we interview them and try to help them, get the word out. We've been doing this for 2 years now, and I seriously thought we would run out of people after 6 months. What the people here in Southern Nevada are doing to help each other out is awesome. And that does not stop just because you become a judge. Because I know that you're doing some kind of side work out there. You're Starlight, you work with Starlight.
Shine a light.
Shine a light, I'm sorry, yeah. And the people in the tunnels. I have run across a number of judges who are really making a difference out in the community. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Hopefully you'll still have time to do that.
Oh, and absolutely. There'll definitely be time to continue to do it.
And you just came today from a graduation.
Correct. So where I was over at Metropolitan's headquarters over on Martin Luther King Boulevard, and they had their what's called Lima graduation. What
Right.
that is Law Enforcement Intervention, Mental Health, and Addiction. And it's a collaborative effort with the Metropolitan Police Department and the kind of a specialty court assistants. They come together as a community, working together, and it's just really a beautiful thing to see the graduates, the alumni, judges, community leaders, just people in support. It was a really good, feel-good moment, and so.
So it's
Just
kind
grateful.
of a diversion program.
Correct,
Yeah.
and I think it's I think we're going even beyond it. Certainly, there are diversion programs, but I think what we're recognizing as a community as well is how it takes this community effort. And so, even when individuals complete these programs, they still remain committed. There's individuals like law enforcement and judges that see this type of stuff, and it's just like good begots good, and it just keeps passing itself forward, which is just a feel-good moment. It's really,
Right.
really something I.
Okay, so now I have to ask you the big question.
Sure.
Why the hell do you want to be a judge? I mean, that's a thankless job as far as I'm concerned.
So, from my point of view, I really take a lot of. I'm really big on community engagement, And I think that it gives me another opportunity to further develop and expand that if I were blessed to take the bench. And what I mean by that is, I think, for instance, like in Henderson Justice Court, we can look towards ways to further develop and evolve these specialty courts, for instance. And I've been blessed, for the many years when we talk about, for instance, like Shine a Light and going down into the flood tunnels, which there's roughly 600 miles of flood tunnels here in southern Nevada.
Yeah.
And we think there's roughly about 1,500 to 1,800 individuals with homing displacement issues. And these are individuals of our community. It's one of those things that we can't forget. These are individuals who have come on some tough times, whether it be substance abuse, mental health. I mean, these are individuals who are veterans, who have served our community, who have done things for our community. And I just feel that by doing that and some of that experience, I want to bring that and carry that kind of, again, community engagement evolution and working on these various courts. And I think, just by having that opportunity of becoming a judge, I'll be able to accomplish that. Something that, it's just something I take pride in, something that's, again, a feel good to help people out.
Henderson is also where the Veterans Court started.
Correct. So there's a Veterans Court that's up in the municipal court, which is upstairs, and then you have the Justice Court. Now, the Henderson Justice Court doesn't have any specific specialty courts currently available. And I think typically what the process would be is they would be transferred, for instance, to like the Veterans Court.
Gotcha.
Or the ABC courts, or they'd be transferred down to the Las Vegas Justice Court or the District Court in downtown Vegas. I do get a sense that, these courts themselves already have a lot of individuals in their particular courts. So I think it's just kind of the next step of looking at Henderson Justice Court specifically to start developing and evolving specialty courts for themselves so that we can further get individuals who need this access to these kind of services, that they'll be able to get into them.
So, and for those of people out there that don't really know the difference, what is the difference between a municipal court and a justice court?
Certainly. So municipal court's basically handling if it's within the incorporated area of the particular city. So like you have the city of Henderson, but also in Henderson you have unincorporated areas.
Right.
So for anything that's in the incorporated area of the city of Henderson for misdemeanors, those are going to go to the Henderson Municipal Court. Whereas in Justice Court, if it's in the unincorporated area of Henderson, misdemeanors would come into the Justice Court in Henderson. Or if it's the more serious crimes, gross misdemeanor or felonies, those cases come into Henderson Justice Court as simply a probable cause hearing. And if there's a slight amount of evidence presented, then what happens is those more serious crimes get transferred to the district court, where then they're looking at like the jury trials that we're accustomed for. Just one point of clarification then too, in Henderson Justice Court for those misdemeanors, it's the judge who determines whether the individual is guilty or not guilty for all of the misdemeanors except for battery domestic violences. Our state Supreme Court had decided several years ago, because if an individual is convicted of a battery domestic violence, they would lose their firearm, that they're entitled to a jury trial even though it's a misdemeanor.
Okay.
So that's some of the stuff. And then in Henderson Municipal Court, they don't handle the civil matters. That's where Henderson Justice Court comes into play. So I always call Henderson Justice Court the People's Court. With these civil cases, you're typically looking if it's up to $15,000 for a civil case, or small claims up to $10,000. And then also like the landlord, tenant, the evictions, habitability issues, and then also non-domestic protective orders. The Henderson Justice Court judge hears all of those.
Okay. So like neighbor disputes or something, or his fence is on my property line, and
to a certain extent,
I'm oversimplifying, but yeah.
I know you're absolutely, and those are the kind of things why I kind of consider it that people's court, because you're likely going to get in scenarios from that civil aspect of not necessarily hiring an attorney just because it may be cost prohibitive. And that's also one other thing that I inspire if I'm able to get on the bench, is looking at ways to further expand what I call is that access to justice, meaning that individuals who are going into court know basically some of the process and the procedures, and can be kind of directed the right way before those court hearings for like the legal aid of Southern Nevada, Nevada Legal Services. They provide self-help information, pro bono services for attorneys to help out. And that's things that I want to make sure that the community has access to, because I do
Right.
believe that's really important as well.
And you yourself have worked with an organization that provides pro bono help
Correct.
to individuals. Can you tell me a little bit about that and
Certainly.
how that works?
So I'm on what's the pro bono counsel advisory for the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada.
Okay.
I've done pro bono work for the good majority of my entire career, all types of cases. And what we try to do is where individuals who, again, may be in scenarios where it may be cost prohibitive for them to get legal services, that they may have the ability to obtain an attorney in what's called pro bono capacity. In other words, the attorneys volunteering their services to help that particular individual out. Additionally, I also work with the Legal Aid Center on what's called their Ask a Lawyer. And what their Ask a Lawyer is individuals can call the Legal Aid Center, for instance, on like a landlord-tenant issue. Let's say they're dealing with an issue of maybe a landlord not repairing the AC unit in the hot time of summer, and figuring out, what options do they have, knowing
Right.
that those living conditions aren't something that they're able to live in, and they will get a time slot to call the attorneys on the Ask a Lawyer sheet, and it's roughly like a 30-minute phone call, and we try to vet through these issues and kind of give them some guidance. Because again, it helps the overall good and getting that access to justice,
Right.
and it helps the judiciary system.
And that's at no cost.
No cost.
Right.
No cost. They
Yeah.
just go to the website on the Legal Aid Center and they can sign up for that.
So, as a judge, you're kind of seeing people on one of the worst days of their life in a lot of cases. They're not necessarily having a good time. And having been on the other side of the bench, how do you think that you can make that a better situation for the individual standing in front of you? How can you help them obtain justice?
Certainly. So, for the vast majority of my 18 years, I've been a criminal defense attorney, handling both state and federal cases. And some of the best feelings are where there's individuals who have gotten themselves caught up in life, but they are not, what we would deem as to be, hey, there's no redemption, in other words.
Yeah.
And when there's these again, go back to the specialty courts available. I have firsthand knowledge from dealing with the clients that I've represented of some true success stories of them going into these programs and coming out completely different individuals, both on the federal level. There's an opportunity to be placed in what's called the RISE program. I represented a client who successfully completed that, and his federal case was completely dismissed. Mind you, it's no cakewalk.
Right.
They're going to have to work
Sure.
to earn it, and
Right.
that's where, relies upon them in order to accomplish what they need to get done and turn on the straight and narrow.
Well, they have to show that they're sincere about what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Not just, oh, here's an easy way out.
It's not an easy way out, and it's very stringent. Through all these programs, there's ongoing testing. They have case managers, probation officers that are constantly observing them, having to go through ongoing testing, making sure that they aren't just sitting there doing nothing, employment, education, vocational training, things to really just build themselves up. But again, it lies on them in order to actually complete that and graduate from these programs. I have another individual who was caught in the state system, and he had unfortunately relapsed. And it was really a close call of whether he was going to get that additional opportunity to prove himself. I mean, it was last chance, and the judge was, hey, why do I not send this person to prison? And I told him, I said, this is it. I mean, this is really where you have to make that turning point. And to his credit, he took full grasp over a couple of years, turned his life around completely, and now he's running one of these recovery home outlets, which is, again, just for me, it really just makes, it's that feel-good moment, and it's why I just reiterate that where we've come as culture and society, a long way, recognizing various issues that a particular person may face, giving them that second chance, and that there are very much true success stories.
So, as an attorney, how do you feel about plea bargains and plea deals?
So I think the plea bargaining process is just inherent nature of the judicial system, if you will. There has to be ways where the laws are created through the legislature, and within these laws, there's parameters as far as what, potential punishments exist, sentencing, things of that nature. And then it's basically then now into the judiciary, once if an individual is accused of a particular crime and is now in the justice system, if you will, that all the people involved in the judicial system, I think we recognize and we work hard on trying to figure out what the potential appropriate resolution may be aside from going to trial.
Right.
Because not very many, if at all, cases go to trial.
Right.
For a variety of reasons. And so if there are options available that the parties can all come into an agreement with, plea bargains accomplish that. And certainly it's not like it's one of those things where, hey, the person then got off. A lot of the times there's various requirements they have to go through, and they have a hammer hanging over their head. If they don't do a requirement, they're looking at jail or prison time.
Right.
So it's one of those things that allows them to, the individual to work themselves, and then also recognizing that we have to kind of prioritize cases, but understanding that, an individual's rap sheet builds up, and that's very well known to the prosecutors, to the courts. And so there's going to be those times where plea bargain's not available.
Yeah. So, when you become a judge, will you still feel that same way about it?
So,
I'm not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot.
No, it's a fair question. As a judge, I mean, every case is going to be different, right? So it's, I can't just live in that vacuum. But what I would say is, I think that a lot of the times, I think the judge is basically calling the balls and the strikes, and then making it fair and equitable for both sides. In other words, that both parties know where the strike zone is at. I have great trust in all the various prosecuting agencies out here in Southern Nevada, along with the defense attorneys, that they're vested in their clients because they've taken an oath for it,
Right.
and they're vested in their cases. They're probably going to know that case extremely better than I have that opportunity of knowing for. So I want to be able to make sure that they also, recognize that, hey, if they're able to come to some type of agreement, notwithstanding, again, I can't speak for everything 100% in particular, but unless there's some extreme exigent circumstance, in other words, something that really sticks out, at that point, it's probably more of a, hey, parties, how did we get here? Because I'm not a fan of it, letting them know. But I really want to place my trust into those attorneys because I just firsthand knowledge how hard we work on these cases, and having an understanding that the judge would respect and appreciate that as well, I do think is an important part of that process.
Yeah. We have, for the most part, a pretty good judicial system. Not perfect. We got some problems here. We have some problems everywhere. I don't mean just here. what do you think that you could do, or all of us can do, to make that system better, to make it run smoother, make it just make it better? Is there anything that, I mean, I know that's a pretty nebulous question.
We could have a long
fire all the
discussion on
lawyers,
that.
Yeah, no. But I mean, are there things you've been an attorney, you've been in front of judges, you've had to have seen things that you say to yourself, and you don't have to admit anything, this isn't right, that this needs to change, or something like that. So, from that perspective, is there anything that you're willing to talk about?
No, and I think it's a fair question, and I think the way that I would respond to that is I do think it starts with kind of the judge, and what I mean by that is being prepared, having the proper temperament, recognizing, being a good listener, and it's not even just necessarily with the attorneys and the parties that come in front of the court as well. I think it starts also with the court staff, your clerks, your bailiffs, marshals, anyone else that's involved in the court system that's working for you, because truly at the end of the day, judges, I know for me just being extremely blessed with the staffing, and not for them making sure that that they are always recognized for, and how appreciated they are for helping out that system. Because if it's not operating properly, kind of like, if you, for lack of a better term, behind the scenes, then it's going to be a mess when court's going on along as well. And I think then that spills over to when people, for instance, are sitting in court and waiting there, and they're like, hey, what am I waiting here for? And then ultimately they get turned away and are having to told to come back. So trying to figure out ways to just make it more efficient. And I think a lot of that comes between just general communication. I wouldn't take any offense if, somebody had brought it to my attention saying, I may not necessarily agree with them, but I think constructive criticism is important regardless of if you wear a robe or if you're on a bench. I think that's important to take that kind of stuff into consideration. So I think that kind of helps the overall landscape of the efficiency of the judiciary, and then certainly making sure that the judge is prepared, and fairness is all important part, impartiality. Those are things that I think collectively tend to make for a better judiciary. Although there's nothing perfect, we're still trying to figure out day by day, and things evolve themselves. I mean, you think about, even for instance, all the adjustments that had to be made when out of the blue COVID came along. So things come along as well, that it's kind of that fluid process, and how do we handle things.
And I think what a lot of people forget is everyone that you just mentioned, from the judge, from the staff, the attorneys, they're people.
100%.
They're just regular people. And if you're having a bad day, you need to leave that in your chamber. You can't bring that to the bench, and that's, I don't know if I could do that. So I do have a lot of respect for, I mean, I've seen situations where I thought, this guy's going to lose it, jump over the bench and beat the crap out of this guy.
Yeah.
And you can't do that.
No.
So that's what the bailiffs are for, right?
Well,
no,
yeah.
I'm kidding, okay? Send your cards and letters to our Nevada judge.
Judicial temperament is extremely important, and I think it's a lot easier said than done. Because like you said, I mean, somebody could, for instance, wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and then recognizing, how my thought process, my emotions, I don't want that to go into play for making proper rulings and decision making. I also think it's important, to recognize, to be mindful of oneself. Judges are humans. If there are things perhaps that create some kind of internal friction, making sure to work on self-care, and making sure to know that, hey, if I need to have the ability maybe to catch my breath here, just to get my mind back in working order, it's okay to say, I need to take a quick recess here, and then just get my thought process right.
Right.
Because the decisions that are being made, can greatly impact somebody's life that's in front of the court.
And your staff in the court, are these people that you choose, or do you inherit them? It is.
I think it's a mixture of both.
Okay.
It's one of those things where, candidly, I think the way that the process typically works is there is some discretion with the judges as far as like who their staff is. But on the other side, you also want to take into consideration sometimes, inheriting that staff is a great thing too.
Sure.
Because they know, again, the ins and outs.
Yeah.
The judge is not all knowing by any means.
Yeah, no,
turning
no,
on the switches and stuff like that.
I know it's just like even in my business, I know somebody that is really excellent at what they do, and if I had the chance, I would make them part of my staff as well.
Right.
And so I was just curious. It's nothing, just my own curiosity about that.
Absolutely.
And normally, how many staff would you have?
So there's typically in like Henderson Justice Court, what I usually see is you've got about 2 or 3 courtroom clerks. They're the ones that are actually in the courtroom and pulling files and calling cases. Usually have several marshal bailiffs in the courtroom. You have a court reporter in there doing the transcribing of the hearing. And then you also, behind the scenes, will have what's called a judicial executive assistant. They're the ones that are in the back when, attorneys or individuals are calling, asking, hey, I have this type of question, or can we coordinate a time that the attorneys can meet with the judge, helping out with kind of the calendaring and being that right-hand person for the judge.
Okay. We're getting kind of close to the end of time here. I want to give you an opportunity to talk to the people out there and tell them why you feel that you deserve this position and that you'd be good at it. So you're on.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, John, for having me. And I appreciate everyone taking their time to watch this. My name is Lance Hendron. As been stated, I'm a resident of Southern Nevada for 35 years, have been practicing for 18 years, have owned my own law practice, managing, I understand, as being a small business owner, just some of the challenges that business owners deal with on a day-to-day basis. I also recognize as being a father, having a wife and 2 daughters, along with my parents still being in the same spot here in Southern Nevada, how important the family and the protection to the community is as well. I've participated on my own time in the Henderson Police Citizens Academy, a 12-week-long program, actively engaged with law enforcement, doing ride-alongs, assisting with role-play skits, and the community engagement like we touched upon. I've worked for many years with the outfits Shine a Light, going in those flood channels and trying to help people out, working with the Just One Project, doing mobile markets, helping out people dealing with some difficulties with some food situations in their lives. And I've also gone and engaged with our local youth. I've spoken in front of my high school that I graduated from now, spoken in front of their government. That was back in 1999. Spoken with the students there now in their government and crime and punishment classes to give them a better understanding, and also have operated as a mock judge for what's called We the People's high school civic programs, just trying to help out our youth. And these are things that I take pride in, and things I think that demonstrate that I'm engaged and wanting to help out those in our community. And then lastly, I just am real grateful for just being given an opportunity in my life to coming from humble beginnings and being where I'm at today. I'm ever grateful for that, and it's reasons why I also like to work with these legal aid centers and helping out individuals, because I know times can be tough, and I know that there are scenarios where people are just dealing with very difficult, extreme times in their life, and I want to be able to be there to make just rulings, fair and partial rulings, but also the compassionate component as well, and working collectively together in this community. And I would greatly appreciate your support in this upcoming election. I will be on the ballot in June, this upcoming primary. You don't have to have a political party affiliation. I'm nonpartisan. I'll be on the ballot regardless, and I humbly ask for your support. You can go to my website at www.lanceforjudge.com, or on social media. You can go to Facebook or Instagram, and it's Lance, the number 4 Judge, and you can find out what's going on through my campaign process. You can also reach out to me directly. My cell number is 702-483-8181, and my email is lance, the number 4 judge.com. And again, I appreciate your time today. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
And remember, Hendron for Henderson.
I like that.
Thank you.
Hey, and I appreciate the support that we get here at the station and for our Nevada judges as well. And I can't say this enough. You've heard me say it over and over and over again. When you get your ballot, there are people's names on there for a reason. You got to vote every single person on there. Not every single person, but you need to go to all of the different offices. These are the people that affect your life every single day, no matter what you do, whether it's the school board, whether it's animal control, judges, superintendents, all of them. They affect your life more than the people at the federal level do. So please, 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 when you get your ballot, mail it in, walk it in, go to the voting booth, however you're going to vote, but make sure you do it. And thank you very much for your time. And
Thank you,
welcome
John.
again. Lance, thank you for
so
taking
much.
the time to come in.
Appreciate it. Thank you.